When Kevin Durant decided to leave Oklahoma City in the summer of 2016, it was clear that one reason he chose the Golden State Warriors was because he wanted to exist in an offense that valued player and ball movement. But recently, KD was quoted in an article saying, "The motion offense we run in Golden State, it only works to a certain point. We can totally rely on our system for maybe the first 2 rounds. Then, the next 2 rounds, we're going to have to mix in individual play. We've got to throw teams off because they're smarter in that round of the playoffs. So now I have to dive into my bag, deep, to create stuff on my own, off the dribble, ISOs, pick and rolls, more so than let the offense create points for me." Of course, Steve Kerr was asked about these comments, and he agreed with Durant, using his teammate in Chicago as a good comparison for how playoff offenses mutate the deeper the team gets. I wasn't at all offended by what Kevin said because it's basically the truth. You look at any system. I played the triangle with Michael Jordan. The offense ran a lot smoother all regular season in the first couple rounds of the playoffs than it did in the conference finals and finals. It just did. That's why guys like Michael Jordan and Kevin Durant and Kobe Bryant are who they are. They can transcend any defense. But defenses in the playoffs, deep in the playoffs, combined with the physicality of the game, where refs can't possibly call a foul every time, means that superstars have to take over. No system is just going to dice a finals defense up. You have to rely on individual play. I didn't look at his comment as offensive. I look at that as fact. So, is this right? Should this be a controversy? Or is it just plain fact that you have to abandon some team principles in order to win a title?
Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to B-Ball Breakdown. I imagine you're as curious as I am to get a handle on whether the footage agrees with Kevin Durant and Steve Kerr. Of course, it would be great to say they disagreed, fought all the time, and only one of them was right. But it's not quite that simple. So let's first look at some stats brought to you by our friends at Arty. During their first title run, it turns out they isolated more in the first round than they did in any other round after that. However, if you look at their efficiency, it was off the charts in both the conference finals against the Spurs and the NBA finals against the Cavaliers. If we peek at KD's individual offensive rating, it was incredible throughout the whole playoffs, peaking in the conference finals as the Spurs had no answer for him. In that first title run, I'd have to disagree with Durant. He played the kind of basketball the Warriors wanted him to, and they earned a title as a result. However, as we moved into the second title year, things changed and followed suit exactly as Durant described. The isolation percentage exploded in the conference finals and stayed well above double digits in the next round as well. However, you can see that the efficiency suffered in the finals a bit, but it wasn't KD's fault, as his offensive rating was the second highest he ever posted in the series with the Warriors. Even more importantly, the effective field goal percentage of the team was the second highest ever for a series, and the Cavaliers in that year had virtually no chance when the Warriors lit up the nets like that. Sadly, KD's third year was marked by a serious calf injury and then his Achilles tear, so the data was incomplete, and I chose to focus on just the first 2 years. Well, now it's time to get into the footage and look at what was really happening on the court. So let's get to it. You in?
Right off the bat, he fit into their attack perfectly. Utilizing off-ball movement to get some of the easiest baskets of his career, it was no wonder he posted the highest field goal and effective field goal percentages of his career. Rather than get bogged down in a my turn, now your turn offense in OKC, he was free to roam the weak side and find soft spots in the defense now that guys like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson were commanding much of the defense's attention as well. Interestingly, the first round sweep of Portland saw the highest percentage of isolations by the Warriors offense compared to their other 3 series that year. Almost in response, they swept the Jazz in round 2 with the lowest amount of isolations they had during the Kevin Durant era. They got back to their normal amount again in the conference finals and finals, So for KD's first year, they didn't need so much of the individual brilliance that both Kerr and Durant talked about. One reason could be is that they got so far out in front of all these series, they never faced many pressurized must-score possessions. They simply overwhelmed their opponents on both ends of the floor, treating us to the kind of teamwork that all coaches endlessly preach about. Things started to change once the team got that first championship, however. Durant's regular season isolation percentage went up from 11.5% in year 1 to 15.5% of the time in year 2. He seemed less willing to buy into the system, and while they won a ton of games, they finished second in the West. There were plenty of examples of KD not moving in the offense, much more stagnant on the weak side than he had been. And while his isolation percentage went down from the regular season to the playoffs in year 1, during the playoffs of 2018, we saw Durant's isolation percentage skyrocket from 15.5% of the time in the regular season to 26.4%, culminating in that epic 7-game series versus Houston, where the overall team isolated a staggering for them 18.1% of the time. Because Houston switched so much, it practically forced the Warriors to attack potential mismatches. The offense would have some sort of movement in the beginning, but often would target the matchup they wanted with KD and let him go at it. This was pretty successful, as Durant maintained a points per possession just above 1, which was just enough to help them eventually pull this out in 7 games. While you can't argue with the overall success the Warriors had in the KD era, it would have been nice to have seen the offense continue its incredible ball and player movement. But Pat Riley described the disease of knee as something that naturally happens to players once they win a title. And it seems clear that Durant lost interest in running their offense at some point during the second year. With the cloud of his free agency hanging over him and the team for all of last season, it looked like he was ready to move on from the beautiful dance that the Warriors offense created for him, leading us all to wonder if things would have gone differently had he been less inclined to isolate one-on-one and more willing to allow the offense to work for him to create inherently easier shots. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you can get notified immediately when we drop a new video. You in?